A whole new global talk show, Newstellers. Let's meet our panelists. Has anything exciting happened to you this year?
Being on Newstellers.
Yeah, sure.
Very exciting indeed.
It was a very interesting experience. It was new for me.
Yeah, we did our debut in Arirang TV, so that was probably the best that happened to all of us.
The pinnacle of our
Not just this
careers.
year.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're enjoying the show.
We do.
And what was the most memorable story that you've written this year?
A story that I really enjoyed writing, and it ended up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal back in April, was about how traditional Korean face readers are having a tough time doing their job because of all the plastic surgery. How they kind of divine a person's future based on their facial features, and if people keep having nose jobs or double eyelid surgery or whatever kind of reconstruction to their faces, some face readers say they can't really deduce what a person's destiny is. And it got some good traction, the story. I co-produced a video for the Wall Street Journal online that accompanied it. It was fun. It was a fun story to do.
And if I can mention a story I did about Korea that was very interesting for me, maybe the most memorable, it was about video game professional gamers in Korea.
Oh yes, very popular.
That was really impressive because I visited a training center when they spend their days like clicking really fast. You have no idea how fast they use the keyboard and the mouse. So that was a very new word that I discovered.
Right. Well, it sounds like you've had a very rich variety of experiences this year, which is great to hear. Shall we get into today's topic?
Please.
Sure.
The last one of 2015, Memories of Newstellers 2015. Now, we've gone through a whopping 38 episodes of Newstellers this
already?
year. Isn't that amazing? It's gone like a flash. Which were your favourites? Can you name your top three?
One that I remember was the episode that we did about people seeking attention online, people posting photos and personal details, which are usually pretty boring. I think during that episode I made the point of it's best not to post anything on social media that isn't objectively interesting. So like the photo of you having dinner, the photo of you and your friend getting coffee probably can be kept in your smartphone library. People, we've always craved a sense of shared experience, of like, sharing moments with other people. And social media makes it possible to share what are like normal and kind of boring moments with people and sort of create the sensation that these things are interesting. I mean, I think we all look at certain people's posts on social media and just say like, this is not interesting at all. Like, what makes you think this is interesting? What makes you want to share this with an audience? I guess a lot of people enjoy the sensation that their lives have an audience.
A good example of that is people taking pictures of their food, I think. And I don't want to be a hypocrite here.
We've talked about this before on the show.
Yeah, because I do this myself sometimes. I'm not a huge offender, I think, but I do it sometimes. So I'm not saying these people are terrible people or anything like that, but it's just kind of bizarre when you think about it. Like, what's the purpose? Why are we doing this? And I think it's something that I've picked up since living in Korea as well, because it's like a really big trend here.
I would like to talk about a very controversial case that came up this year in Spain when the Oscar ceremony in the US. There was a B-list Spanish actress called Ana Allen, and the thing is that she gave an interview for a big Spanish newspaper, and she sent them some pictures of the Oscar, saying that she was there in the ceremony with a lot of famous Hollywood people. But then the newspaper found out that all pictures were photoshopped, and she was not in the Oscars. And then they found out more, and then they saw that half of her Instagram and Facebook public profiles were faked, and they were all Photoshop pictures with really famous people, interviews that she never did, and people that she never met. So it was a really big case in Spain, and I think that poor girl fell in disgrace, and a lot of people were making memes of her. So finally, that went out of her hands for that hunger for attention and that attempt to raise up her career.
I thought that was an interesting episode because that's a really important topic, but it's also one that's fun to discuss.
Very prevalent these days.
Yeah.
Online.
I'm sad that I missed out on that one.
I'm kind of glad you weren't here, actually.
Actually, the one I like, I think you missed it too. Were you here for the Kidult?
No.
Yeah,
Episode-
Kidult was
the
good.
Kidult
That was a
very
good
fun.
one, wasn't it? Yeah.
Because we all had to talk about our like geek part of like geek inside each of us.
And you brought in your Batman.
That wasn't me. That wasn't
wasn't
me.
you?
That was John who brought his little
Oh
Batman
yes,
toy.
I'm sorry.
No,
The person in this
I
chair.
kept my Spider-Man toy at home.
Yes.
Now I have to say this was given to me as a gift, so I didn't buy this
Sure,
myself.
sure.
Oh, come on, John. Come clean.
And also, I kind of object to the Kidult title because I think Batman's quite serious in his own way, especially in some interpretations of the character. There's a lot of sort of, actually, content that's not really suitable for children that I would never show my son or daughter if I had one. But yeah, I have a bit of a soft spot, if that's the right word, for Batman. I think he's just a really fun character, and a lot of the movies and comics are really fun.
For me, I'm a huge fan of Japanese animation genius Hayao Miyazaki. And other than that, I have to confess, I still play retro video games from the 80s, like the
Okay,
Nintendo
such as?
games.
Right.
And I even now, I don't enjoy the new video games, but I really enjoy playing the old Super Mario or the old Castlevania, and I still do up to today.
I would like to quote these examples of irreverent and sarcastic cartoons like The Simpsons, or South Park or Futurama. Another example is Shin-chan.
Shin-chan?
Shin-chan.
Is that Dragon Ball? No.
No, you don't know
Oh,
Shin-chan?
Django, apparently.
Changu?
You call it
So apparently in Korean he's called Django.
Changu.
Yeah. Well, Korea's kidult market is still small compared to the US, but it's definitely showing a steady growth. What is behind such big growth, do you think?
There is a big marketing effort from the companies to target adults, because when you do some products or contents for children, you target children, but you depend on their parents to buy the things for them, to buy the products or the content for them.
Yeah.
But if you target the adults directly, you know that those adults, they have money and they can buy the content. So the companies know it, and the companies made in the last decades a lot of efforts to target directly those adults and to expand their market and to sell more products.
And I think one of the reason of this growth is that the commercial appeal of these products is so strong. Nothing can beat that. We live in difficult times. We live in a time of global warming, of rising inequality. And anything that can remind us our childhood when we had no worry, we were kids. There is this nostalgia appeal is so strong. I think it's very easy for any company to tap into that appeal.
Okay.
I think an episode that I fondly remember was the one on drones that we did in the spring. I mean,
Yeah.
mostly because we got to interact with a drone right here in the studio.
Indeed.
And it didn't kill us, which
It
was
did not, thank
nicer.
you.
I mean, and I think, of course, drones is still a very relevant issue, and I know Stephen and I have continued the debate we had a little bit in that show about, is it justifiable to knock off a target with using drones? And that's come back up in the news recently with the assassination of Jihadi John, one of the members of ISIS who did all the videos of beheading foreign captives. So yeah, it's still a very relevant issue, and I think Newstellers really was at the forefront of covering the debate over drones. Yeah.
It's so loud.
Take a seat.
Oh no, that way. There we go.
Hey, welcome to Newstellers. Yeah. Drone.
We have a special guest panelist this week.
So drones. Welcome, little drone. They seem to be everywhere these days. So can you guys think of any news stories that have been out recently about the use of drones?
Well, Amazon has been talking for almost a year about its Prime Air service, which would be using drones to deliver packages to customers. They say that with their service, it would take 30 minutes or less.
I wanted to talk about something that happened in the UK. There was a restaurant called Your Sushi that they
I used to go there a
invented
lot.
the iTray. They just send a drone, and the drone brings you the tray with the food, and you can just enjoy your sushi there.
I read a story also in the UK about a couple that used a drone to document their holidays. They went and they looked at sites and looked at the type of things that all tourists do when we go abroad, but instead of just using their phones or using a camera, they use this drone to take what were some pretty interesting images of the places.
There is a French company that just is selling a similar drone. It's a very small drone. You don't have to control it. It just follows you automatically and takes picture of yourself, of you, and even films. So there is a video where the guy is snowboarding and is going downhill, and his little drone is following him and shooting the video. That was pretty impressive. There is this Star Wars feel a little bit.
All right, so the world has got its eye on drones, it seems. Let's talk about some other general problems that arise with the use of drones.
There's a really, really big concern because, these devices are small and very cheap and very easy to get. And terrorism is a really global, big problem these days, and it's even rising. Sure. So some terrorists can just get a drone and put a bomb on it and kill people.
There are
anywhere.
reports that ISIS, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, they have acquired drones according to some reports that I've seen, but they're quite rudimentary and they're not anywhere at the level of what the US military or the Israeli military have. But right, it raises concerns how they could be used.
And more than bombs, if you put chemicals or like biochemical weapons, and I think it can be devastating.
No, drones enhance the abilities of whoever uses them, whether they be terrorists, whether they be military generals, whether they be journalists, to do the work that they've always done, but just find a new way to unleash that.
Another one that was very intense was the one about privacy and surveillance by CCTV.
Our second episode.
Because the team put some cameras when we were like preparing for the show. So it was like a kind of an experiment for the show. And
footage did not make it to
some of us were like really shocked about being like watched by cameras without knowing. So it was like a little bit of controversy in our group. But finally we solved it, and everybody laughed.
But it definitely made you think about privacy in real life.
Exactly. Yeah, it was interesting to
how scary it is.
to see what happened when you film without knowing
Yeah.
it. One I like was about nuclear issue because we got to fight a lot, we got to disagree a lot, and fighting with Alta is always funny.
Yeah.
So I ended up being right at the end of the show. So
They had to destroy Fred's argument.
Right, yeah. I thought you said, Fred, at the end that nuclear energy was left for the best.
Yeah. Finally he got convinced. So.
Where it belongs.
Yeah.
To the past.
Is that what you said? Okay.
The first example I can think of in Europe is Germany, who decided to phase out all its nuclear power plant. Actually, this decision was taken even before the Fukushima incident, but somehow the Fukushima catastrophe increased and reinforced the determination of the German government. So they plan to phase out all nuclear energy within a couple of years. They already have now 25% of their energy comes from renewable, and 80% of the German public opinion is in favor of a nuclear phase out. And what I found really interesting is that now Germany used to buy electricity from France, but actually it changed in the last couple of years. They're actually selling electricity to France. So it doesn't mean the fact that you abandon nuclear energy doesn't make you more vulnerable.
And I think that's the right policy of the government of China. And in the case of China, we can see that there are some cities that they are just covered by clouds of pollution because of the coal plants, and people is dying with 50 years old with respiratory diseases. Hundreds of thousands of people died every year, directly caused by the emissions of those fossil fuel plants. Millions of people died because of oil and coal electricity production. So we have the results there, and I think we should start to focus about how can we end with those fossil fuels instead of end with nuclear energy.
Okay, do the rest of you agree?
I bet Fred does not agree.
I mean, I come from the most pro-nuclear country in the world. I'm from France. 75% of our electricity is nuclear. This is by far the highest rate among all the countries in the world. Actually, nuclear energy is heavily subsidized. People say, oh, it's cheap. It's not. All the government are heavily subsidizing nuclear energy. And actually something very interesting happening is Sweden now. Sweden is a pretty nuclearized country. Like 40% of the electricity comes from nuclear energy. And they are considering now phasing out, and they introduce a tax on nuclear energy. And of course the nuclear lobby is very angry at this tax, but I think the European Court of Justice or the European Commission agreed that it was legal to have a tax on nuclear energy, and I think that's a right policy.
Right. I mean, and if you look at like what's happening in the U.S. with fracking, where they're basically blowing up the top of mountains to extract oil or other resources. I mean, that's a very visible environmental damage that's kind of underway as we speak. Where, right, sure, nuclear power, the potential for an enormous disaster is there, but really there have only been 2 major catastrophes in the 60 or so years that nuclear energy has been used.
I enjoyed the episode that we did about refugees, which is a difficult topic to discuss. There's a lot
Still
of
an ongoing one as well.
That's just, I think, a question that humanity is facing right now, is like how to deal with people who have had to leave their homes and are looking for somewhere else to go. Particularly in Europe, it's a relevant question. So I'm glad that as Newstellers we took that up and contributed to the ongoing debate on that topic.
So let's delve deeper into the issue of refugees. What was the cause of this recent refugee crisis? What kind of problems created it?
Well, I mean, I think the destabilization of Libya is a big factor because the Italian government used to work directly with the Gaddafi regime and have them police their very long sea border and have them make sure that, migration was kept to a minimum. With the fall of Gaddafi, Libya has become a very chaotic place, and there's really nobody in Tripoli for the Italian government to cooperate with. So I think, as we've seen over the past several years, some of the autocratic governments in that part of the world falling, seemed like a very good thing at the time, but what they've been replaced with have not been able to effectively administer those countries.
And the most recent one is the Syrian war. All of those conflicts are related in some way. All of the things that are happening in the Middle East, and the Syrian war is producing a lot of refugees, a lot of chaotic situations in the country. And as we can see, as this small kid and many of the refugees come from Syria.
The various European countries have very different stances when it comes to accepting refugees. Which side are you guys on?
In my case, I'm on a kind of a neutral side.
Okay.
I'm more on the side that we have to accept the refugees, of course, but also I think we have to check very well that those refugees are real asylum seekers.
Okay.
And they are not just economic migrants, or they are not even terrorists that they can be like disguised. A lot of people with really extremist ideas, they can come in those flows and meet their extremist
Look at the Charlie Hebdo killings in Paris. Were not by refugees; they were by people who were born in France.
I was about to say, ISIS mostly is recruiting from the West anyhow.
Exactly.
I think we're going a little too deep into this topic, but I would just add that I think it's important to make clear something. I think there's a big misconception about migration. Like the way that these types of issues are normally depicted in the media is that these people are coming to societies and they want to take from those societies. And how do we have enough resources and how can we allow things to give them? That is not correct. Mm-hmm. A lot of data and a lot of studies on migration show that when new migrants go to countries, they end up contributing to the economy. They provide a net gain to the economy. So I think the most important thing is to allow these people the legal and the immigration framework to make contributions to these new societies. Give them legal status, give them a basic kind of framework for their lives, and then I think they can contribute and there can be a net gain from the situation.
I agree with you, Stephen. And I think countries should have a very open policy toward refugees, and especially in, let's say, the Syrian case. These people who are fleeing the war going back home, they're not destitute people. They have spent a lot of money to travel. It costs thousands of dollars for them to arrange boats and the transport from Syria through Turkey to Greece or whatever. They're Syrian middle class or higher. A lot of them probably will go back to Syria when the situation stabilizes. I think throughout the last few decades, refugees often do go back home. They own property, they have businesses. So, it's right. There could be some initial economic impact on a receiving country, but I think in the long run, it will benefit the nation.
But studies now clearly show that migrants are a factor of dynamism, of economic dynamism. But let's think, Steve Jobs was the son of a Syrian migrant. People forget that, and it's not the only. It's just a very peculiar example. But generally, when you have influx of migrants, that increase the salaries for everybody, and they just create more jobs as they come. But that should not be the reason why we accept migrants. We should accept migrants because this is a humanitarian thing to do. Europe should not forget that we are a continent made of migration. The father of President Sarkozy was a migrant coming from Hungary. And now he said, oh, no, France should close its border. I find it that extremely disturbing.
So they're forgetting far too quickly.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why Germany, I think one of the reasons Germany is accepting now so many migrants is because German people remember that themselves, along their history, especially in the last century, they had to suffer a lot of migration.
Right.
And they should not, and I think that's one of the ones that they feel a bit of empathy towards the Syrian people.
I think we covered like a huge range of topics during the last 38 episodes. We did cover some more lighthearted ones like the Kidult episode, but we also covered a lot of serious political issues as well. And it was really fascinating to hear all your takes and the various debates we had on the topics as well. Now, being very busy journalists, some of you have had to miss a couple of episodes here and there. Indeed. But we had a lot of special guests in your place, and also a lot of professors and experts that we interviewed on screen as well. Were there any memorable ones, and who would you like to invite on the show or back on the show?
We did an episode in June about the MERS outbreak, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome outbreak here in Korea. And we brought on a guest over the phone line, Dr. Lucy.
Dr. Lucy, welcome to Newstellers.
Thank you very much for having me on Newstellers.
Hi, Dr. Lucy. My name is Jason. Thanks for joining us. I'm wondering if there are any international guidelines from the World Health Organization or other global agencies for countries on how to contain epidemics. Are there any guidelines for stopping the spread of these types of outbreaks?
Yes, Jason. The World Health Organization, the WHO, has on their website very specific information about the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, for example, as well as for other causes of outbreaks such as the Ebola virus or influenza viruses. So I think that the World Health Organization is probably the best source of information for how to respond at the beginning against new epidemics.
I really felt that he added a lot of substance to our discussion. I mean, as journalists, we're limited to our knowledge. I mean, we're all kind of generalists, like none of us have medical background, so I thought it was very useful to bring in a respiratory ailment doctor to really put into perspective how serious MERS was and kind of evaluate some of the steps that were being taken by the South Korean government at the time. So I'm happy to have more experts like that come back on future episodes.
Definitely.
Well, I remember the psychoanalyst Lee Na-mi, who I thought had a really interesting analysis during the Attention Seekers episode. She was able to break down, I thought, like the psychological reasons of like why people do these types of things on social media and like what would be better ways of like satisfying those desires.
Do not be obsessed with KakaoTalk or messages. I recommend you read some books. You may have great information by reading great books. You have to have real friends who can hold your friends if you are sick, if you are sad, or if you are disappointed. So do not hesitate to meet people person to person.
So I was really impressed by her analysis, so I actually reached out to her and I interviewed her for the book that I'm writing. I went to her office in Seoul's Yangjae district and had tea with her, and she's just a really, really intelligent, really cool woman with a lot of interesting stuff to say. So I'd love to have her on again anytime.
Now, I think, not to toot our own horn, but I think we put on a pretty good show here on Newstellers. Shall we wrap up with our final headlines on Memories of Newstellers 2015?
I would say that our global talk show may not be new anymore, but we're going to make it better.
New and better.
Yes.
I like it.
I would say thank you for being with us all this year, and please stay up for next year.
Right, a message to our viewers directly. I like it.
Yeah, I think my headline would be similar. Thank you for this great year. I hope next year will be even better.
Great stuff. And Jason?
I disagree with Stephen I think I would like to say that no matter how many episodes that we tape of Newstellers, it will always be a whole new global talk show.
This guy has a future in PR, I think.
Indeed. And differing opinions as always. I like it. Well, thank you so much for your really, really insightful and fascinating talk this year. I'm already looking forward to next year. I hope you guys are too.
Yes, yeah.
And join us next year, now viewers, for a whole new global talk show, Newstellers. We will be open for any opinions or requests on our official website as well as our Facebook page.
I went to Japan to interview people from Fukushima, the nuclear refugees. That was maybe the most memorable.
And maybe I one about tattoos in Korea that it was like very widely published by the Spanish media, and I really like it.
How traditional Korean face readers are having a tough time doing their job because of all the plastic surgery.
Busan Film Festival, and I met Christopher Doyle, who's a very interesting Hong Kong filmmaker. So that was a story that I took back, and I worked hard on doing a second version, and it came out really well.